The late spring sun hung low over the sprawling suburbs of Irvine, California, casting golden streaks across the Lincoln High School parking lot. It was June, the air thick with the buzz of post-SAT anticipation, and I, Emma Thompson, clutched a crisp college acceptance letter in my trembling hands. My heart raced as I drove my beat-up Honda Civic across town to the University of California, Riverside, where my boyfriend, Jake Larson, was already enrolled in a summer program. I'd worked hard to match his path, aiming for the same state college he'd chosen. The letter in my hand was proof of my sacrifice, proof I'd done it for him, for us. I parked near the campus quad, my sneakers crunching on the gravel path as I scanned the sea of students lounging on the grass. Then I saw him. Jake, with his tousled blonde hair and easy grin, stood under an oak tree, his arms wrapped around another girl. She giggled as he whispered something, their faces inches apart, her fingers tracing the edge of his varsity jacket. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself forward, the letter crumpling slightly in my grip. Jake. My voice cracked, barely audible over the chatter of the quad. He turned, his blue eyes meeting mine without a flicker of guilt. The girl stepped back, smirking, her ponytail swaying as she crossed her arms. Jake shrugged, his lips curling into that careless smile I used to adore. Guess you caught me, Emma. Let's break up. The words hit like a punch. I stood frozen, the letter slipping slightly in my sweaty palm. Break up, Jake, you told me to apply to Riverside. You said we'd be together. My voice rose, drawing curious glances from nearby students. He tilted his head, unfazed. That was your choice, Emma. I never made you do anything. His tone was light, almost mocking, as if my pain was just another game he'd won. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the truth crashed over me. Jake Larson, the golden boy of Lincoln High, didn't love me. He never had. He was the son of a wealthy real estate developer, charming and athletic, with a knack for making girls feel special until he didn't. I'd been one of his conquests, a straight-A student who'd fallen for his promises only to be discarded when he grew bored. I'd heard rumors about his flings, but ignored them, believing I was different. I saw the pattern while watching him drape an arm around the other girl. He thrived on watching girls like me, smart-driven, full of potential, throw it all away for him. Tears stung my eyes as I stumbled back to my car. The acceptance letter felt like a weight, a reminder of what I'd given up. I'd tanked my SAT scores, skipping key questions to ensure I'd land at Riverside instead of the Ivy League schools my teachers had pushed me toward. All for Jake. All for a boy who saw me as nothing more than a fleeting challenge. As I drove home, the radio blaring pop hits, I couldn't shake his words, "That was your choice." They echoed in my mind, a cruel taunt. I'd been so naive, so desperate to prove my love, that I'd thrown away my future. The suburbs blurred past strip malls and palm trees, fading into the haze of my anger and shame. I wanted to tell my story, to warn others not to make the same mistake. If I could, I'd share it with the world, maybe even on a platform like YouTube, where people could hear my truth. Hit that like button to show they felt it, leave a comment to share their stories, or subscribe to follow my journey. But for now, I was alone, gripping the steering wheel, wondering how I'd let myself fall so far. Back home, I tossed the letter onto my desk and collapsed onto my bed. My room, plastered with posters of Stanford's campus and motivational quotes, mocked my failure. I'd dreamed of studying computer science at a top university, but Jake's charm had derailed me. Lincoln High was a pressure cooker where every student was judged by their college acceptances. Parents bragged about UCLA and Berkeley at PTA meetings, while teachers tracked our progress like stockbrokers. I'd been on track for greatness until I chose Jake over myself. That night I lay awake, replaying the moment in the quad. The other girl smirked, Jake's indifference. The way my heart had shattered. I wasn't just losing a boyfriend, I was losing the version of myself I'd hoped to become. I thought if only I could go back, staring at the ceiling. If only I could undo that one stupid choice. Little did I know fate or something else was listening. The years after high school were a slow bleed. My choice to follow Jake Larson to UC Riverside, a respectable but not elite state college, had ripple effects I hadn't anticipated. In my senior year at Lincoln High, I'd deliberately underperformed on the SATs, skipping math problems and rushing essays to lower my score from Ivy League territory to Jake's level. I'd thought it was romantic, a grand gesture to build a future together. Instead, it was a trap I'd set for myself. College was a grind. With its brutalist buildings and sprawling lawns, Riverside's campus felt like a constant reminder of what I'd given up. I majored in business, hoping to claw my way to a decent career, but my degree carried little weight. The American job market was unforgiving. At interviews, recruiters glanced at my resume and frowned. Community college transfer to Riverside. Hmm. My grades were solid, but the name of my school branded me as second rate. I landed low-paying jobs, data entry, retail management, customer service, each one a step further from the tech career I'd once dreamed of at Stanford. I worked late nights, my eyes burning from computer screens, my bank account barely covering rent in my cramped Irvine apartment. Friends from Lincoln High posted about their lives on social media. Sarah was at MIT designing AI algorithms. Michael had landed a finance job in New York after graduating from Cornell. Meanwhile, I was stuck, my potential buried under the weight of that one choice. Jake's words. "That was your choice," haunted me, a cruel echo in every rejection email, every missed opportunity. The broader world didn't help. America's obsession with college prestige was relentless. News articles debated the value of degrees while parents at coffee shops boasted about their kids' acceptances to UCLA or Caltech. I felt like a statistic, one of the millions who'd gambled on love and lost. My parents, supportive but disappointed, never said it outright, but I saw it in their eyes. They'd expected more from their straight-A daughter. One rainy November night, 5 years after graduation, I was driving home from a double shift at a call center. The 405 freeway was slick, the wipers struggling against the downpour. My phone buzzed with a notification, another LinkedIn rejection. I sighed, my vision blurring with exhaustion and tears. I'd applied to a tech startup, hoping my self-taught coding skills would outweigh my degree. No luck. The recruiter's note was blunt. "We seek candidates from top-tier institutions." A truck's headlights blinded me as I merged onto an exit ramp. I swerved, tires screeching, but it was too late. The world spun, glass shattered, and a strange warmth enveloped me. Amid the chaos, a soft, otherworldly voice whispered, "You can try again. Choose wisely." A blinding light pulsed, and I felt weightless, as if pulled through time itself. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the wreckage. I was in my childhood bedroom, posters of Stanford still tacked to the walls. The calendar read, September 2017, my senior year at Lincoln High. I was 17 again, my SATs still ahead of me, and my future was unwritten. My hands shook as I touched my desk, the familiar textbooks stacked neatly. This wasn't a dream. It was a second chance, a gift from some cosmic force that had seen my regret and offered redemption. I sat on my bed, heart pounding. In my past life, I'd let Jake Larson define me. I'd run his errands, washed his gym clothes, done his homework, all because I thought it was love. I'd ignored the whispers at school, the way classmates rolled their eyes when I trailed after him. Lincoln High was a microcosm of ambition where college acceptances were currency, and I'd squandered mine for a boy who saw me as disposable. Not this time. I grabbed a notebook and wrote one word: Stanford. That was my goal now, not some state college to please Jake. I'd use my memories from the future, every SAT question type, every essay prompt to ace the test. I'd study harder, more innovatively, and leverage the knowledge of my past failures. The American education system was a gauntlet, but I knew its tricks now. I'd aim for the top, not just to prove myself to others, but to honor the version of me I'd lost. Outside the Irvine suburbs were quiet, the palm trees swaying in the breeze. I could hear my mom cooking downstairs, the familiar clatter of pots. This was my chance to rewrite my fate, to choose myself over a boy who'd never deserved me. Jake Larson was still out there, probably charming another girl, but I wouldn't be his next victim. I closed my notebook, a fire igniting in my chest. This time I'd fight for my dreams, no distractions, no regrets. The fluorescent lights of Lincoln High's classroom buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the rows of desks cluttered with AP textbooks and energy drink cans. It was early September 2017, the start of my senior year, and I, Emma Thompson, sat hunched over my calculus notebook, scribbling derivatives with a focus I hadn't felt in my past life. The air was thick with the pressure of college applications, the hallways of our suburban California school abuzz with whispers about SAT scores and UC admissions. Lincoln High was a battleground where every student fought for a spot at a top university, and I'd already lost once. Not this time. In my previous life, I'd been Jake Larson's shadow, trailing him with water bottles and completed homework, convinced it was love. I'd tanked my SATs to follow him to UC Riverside, sacrificing my dream of Stanford for a boy who'd betrayed me without a second thought. Now, reborn with memories of that future, I had a chance to rewrite my story. My goal was clear: ace the SATs, apply to Stanford, and become the computer science innovator I'd always wanted to be. No boy, no matter how charming, would derail me again. The bell rang, signaling the end of the fourth period. My desk mate, Mia Rodriguez, stretched lazily, her ponytail bouncing. "Emma, you gonna grab Jake's energy drink? He's probably waiting by the gym." Her tone was teasing, but her eyes held curiosity. In my past life, I'd have bolted out the door, eager to please Jake. Now I kept my gaze on my notebook, solving for X. "Not happening, Mia. I've got work to do." She blinked, surprised. "Whoa, what's up with you? You're like always running after him." Her words stung, reminding me how deeply I'd let Jake define me. The school knew me as his loyal girlfriend, the straight-A junior who'd fetch his snacks and fix his essays. I'd been blind, mistaking servitude for devotion, which cost me everything. I forced a smile, closing my textbook. I'm over it. Gotta focus on Stanford. Mia's jaw dropped, but I grabbed my backpack and headed to the library before she could reply. The halls were a chaotic swirl of students, some clutching college brochures, others gossiping about who'd gotten into Berkeley. Early action. Lincoln High's culture was relentless. Parents compared their kids' GPAs at coffee shops, and teachers drilled us with practice tests, their bonuses tied to our college placements. I'd once been a star in this game, until I threw it away for Jake. I spread out my SAT prep books in the library, their pages dog-eared from my future memories. I knew the test's tricks. The math section loved trigonometry traps, the reading passages favored obscure vocabulary, and the essay demanded a clear thesis. I'd skipped questions to lower my score in my past life, but now I tackled each practice set with precision. I'd also enrolled in an online coding course, brushing up on Python to strengthen my Stanford application. My future self had taught me that hard work wasn't enough, you needed strategy, and I had 5 years' worth of hindsight to guide me. A shadow fell over my desk as I worked through a geometry problem. Ethan Clark, the school's top student, stood there, his dark hair slightly messy, a physics textbook under his arm. "You're stuck on that one," he said, not a question. His voice was quiet, almost shy, but his hazel eyes held a spark of curiosity. In my past life, I'd barely noticed Ethan, who Jake too consumed. Now I remembered how he'd carried me to the nurse's office when I'd fainted from low blood sugar, his concern genuine but unspoken. "Yeah," I admitted, tapping my pencil. "The angles are throwing me off." He slid into the chair beside me, sketching a diagram. "Try breaking it into 2 triangles. See the congruence." His explanation was clear and patient, and I nodded, grateful. Ethan was a mystery, always at the top of the class, yet he kept to himself, avoiding the social cliques that dominated Lincoln High. I wondered why he'd bothered to help me. "Thanks," I said, meeting his gaze. He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You're aiming high, I can tell." His words caught me off guard, a reminder that someone saw me beyond Jake's girlfriend. I wanted to ask more, but he was already back to his book, lost in equations. As I returned to work, a fire burned in me. This was my chance to reclaim my future, and I wouldn't waste it on old habits or old loves. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of eucalyptus, as I walked across Lincoln High's courtyard, my backpack heavy with AP notes. 2 months into my reborn senior year, I'd thrown myself into studying my desk, a fortress of SAT prep books and coding tutorials. My goal was Stanford, and I was laser-focused, using my future memories to target weak spots like calculus and critical reading. But the past wasn't easy to escape. Jake Larson's presence loomed like a shadow, his charm still a magnet for attention in our pressure cooker school. Lincoln High was a microcosm of ambition, where college acceptances defined your worth. Posters for UC applications lined the halls, and the guidance office buzzed with seniors tweaking their Common App essays. I'd been part of this race once until I'd derailed myself for Jake. I was rewriting that story, but the school's memory of me, Jake's devoted girlfriend, was hard to shake. Classmates whispered when I passed, expecting me to revert to my old ways. I ignored them, but Jake wasn't so easy to dodge. After gym class, I headed to my locker, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. Jake was waiting, leaning against the wall in his basketball jersey, his blonde hair damp with sweat. His friends lounged nearby, tossing a basketball between them. "Emma, where's my water?" he called, his tone half teasing, half expecting. In my past life, I'd have rushed to the vending machine, eager to please. I kept walking, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. "Not your servant, Jake," I said, opening my locker. "Buy it yourself." His friends snickered, and Jake's smile faltered, his blue eyes narrowing. What's with you lately? You used to be cool. His words were laced with irritation, as if my refusal was a personal affront. I slammed my locker shut, facing him. I'm done wasting my time on you. I've got bigger plans. The courtyard fell quiet, students pausing to watch. Jake's charm relied on compliance, and I was breaking the script. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're acting like I meant nothing. We had something, Emma. His sincerity was an act one I'd fallen for before. I remembered the quad at UC Riverside, his arm around another girl, his casual dismissal. That was your choice. I wouldn't fall again. We're done, Jake, I said, my voice steady. Move on. I turned away, ignoring his stunned expression, and headed to AP Physics. My hands shook, but I felt lighter, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. I struggled with a momentum problem in class, my pencil tapping restlessly. Ethan Clark, seated across the room, glanced over. Need a hint? He asked, his voice barely audible over the teacher's lecture. I nodded, and he slid his notebook toward me, a neat diagram explaining the solution. Conservation of momentum, he said. I smiled, grateful. Ethan was an enigma, top of the class, yet he avoided the spotlight Jake craved. I'd learned he was aiming for Stanford too, his quiet ambition contrasting with Jake's loud charisma. Thanks, Ethan, I said, copying the diagram. He nodded, then hesitated. You're different this year. Focused. His observation caught me off guard, a reminder that my change was visible. Trying to be, I replied, unsure how much to share. He returned to his work, but his words lingered, a quiet validation of my new path. Later, I sat with Mia in the cafeteria, picking at my sandwich. The room buzzed with college talk students comparing SAT prep courses and extracurriculars. Jake's table was loud, his laughter drawing eyes. But I noticed Tiffany Brooks, the class president, watching him too closely. She'd always been sharp, her eyes tracking me with envy and disdain. In my past life, I'd learned she'd been with Jake after me, her grades slipping to follow him. Now her glare suggested history was repeating. Emma, you're so obvious, Tiffany said, sliding into the seat across from me and dumping Jake in front of everyone. Classy. Her tone dripped with sarcasm, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the table. Lincoln High's social hierarchy thrived on drama, and Tiffany was its queen, always ready to pounce. I'm not the one chasing him, I shot back. Focus on your own life, Tiffany. Her smirk faltered, but she leaned in. You think you're above us now? You'll crash and burn. I ignored her, grabbing my tray and heading out. I wouldn't let her or Jake pull me back into their orbit. My future was at stake, and I'd fight for it one problem at a time. The November chill settled over Irvine, California. As I navigated the crowded halls of Lincoln High, my backpack stuffed with SAT prep books and a laptop loaded with Python tutorials. It was mid-semester of my senior year, reborn with memories of a future I was determined to rewrite. My goal was Stanford University, a dream I'd abandoned in my past life for Jake Larson, the charming basketball star who'd betrayed me. Now I was all in on my studies, leveraging my knowledge of SAT question patterns and college application strategies to claw my way back to the top. But Lincoln High's cutthroat environment wasn't letting me off easy. The school was a pressure cooker, its walls plastered with posters for UC applications and flyers for SAT boot camps. Students swapped tips on personal statements while parents hovered at college fairs, eyeing Ivy League reps like hawks. I'd been a contender once until I'd tanked my SATs to follow Jake to UC Riverside. Now I was rebuilding, spending late nights mastering calculus and coding algorithms, my future self's failures guiding my every move. But the ghost of my past, Emma, Jake's devoted girlfriend, still haunted me, drawing whispers and side eyes from classmates who couldn't forget. In AP English, I felt a prickling stare as I annotated The Great Gatsby. Tiffany Brooks, the class president, with her flawless ponytail and designer backpack, sat 2 rows over, her green eyes locked on me. She'd always been hostile, her sharp tongue a weapon in Lincoln High's social arena. In my past life, I'd learned she'd hooked up with Jake after our breakup, her grades slipping to chase him to a third-tier college. Now her glares suggested history was circling back. Emma, you're so obvious, Tiffany said, her voice cutting through the classroom hum as we packed up. She stood flipping her hair and flaunting your little breakup drama with Jake. It's pathetic. Her friends smirked, leaning in like vultures. The room quieted, students glancing over, hungry for gossip. Lincoln High thrived on this drama, was currency, and Tiffany was rich. I zipped my backpack, meeting her gaze. I'm done with Jake, Tiffany. You should focus on your own life. My tone was calm but firm, starkly contrasting to the old Emma who'd have shrunk under her stare. Tiffany's smirk faltered, but she recovered, stepping closer. You think you're above us now, acting all studious. You'll crash and burn, Emma. Everyone knows you're just Jake's ex scrambling to save face. Her words stung, echoing the doubts I'd buried. I'd been exactly that in my past life, Jake's shadow, my potential wasted on his whims. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I slung my bag over my shoulder. We'll see who's scrambling when the SAT scores come out. I walked out, ignoring her scoff, my heart pounding with anger and resolve. I sat alone in the cafeteria at lunch reviewing SAT vocabulary flashcards. The room buzzed with chatter about college essays and early decision deadlines. Jake's table was loud, his laughter drawing eyes as he tossed a fry at a friend. Tiffany sat nearby, her gaze flickering between him and me. I'd seen them together recently, her tutoring him after school, their heads bent too close over a textbook. She was clearly falling into the same trap I had, chasing a boy who'd never commit. I pitied her, but I wouldn't waste energy on her drama. Instead, I focused on my plan. My future memories gave me an edge. I knew the SAT's tricks, like how the math section loved to hide geometry and word problems, or how the reading passages tested inference over recall. I joined the school's coding club, building a portfolio of Python projects to impress Stanford's admissions board. My evenings were spent in the library surrounded by students just as driven, all racing against the ticking clock of college applications. Lincoln High's obsession with prestige was suffocating, but it fueled me. I wouldn't let Tiffany's taunts or Jake's shadow pull me back. As I flipped a flashcard, a tray clattered onto the table. Mia Rodriguez, my deskmate, slid into the seat across from me. She said, Tiffany's on a rampage, popping a chip into her mouth. She's telling everyone you're faking this whole new Emma thing to get attention. I sighed, closing my flashcard app. Let her talk. I've got bigger things to worry about. Mia grinned. Like Stanford, you're serious about that, huh? I nodded, a spark of pride flaring. Dead serious. Mia leaned in, lowering her voice. Just watch out. Tiffany's tight with the guidance counselor. She's got pull. I shrugged, but her warning lingered. Tiffany's influence was real. Class presidents at Lincoln High were mini celebrities, their words carrying weight with teachers and peers. I couldn't afford to underestimate her, but I wouldn't let her distract me. Stanford was my North Star. I'd fight through any storm to get there. The fluorescent lights of Lincoln High's science wing flickered as I sat in AP Physics, my notebook open to a problem set on projectile motion. It was late November, and the pressure of college applications was palpable, the air thick with the scent of dry erase markers and anxiety. Irvine's suburban sprawl lay quiet outside, but inside Lincoln High was a battlefield of ambition, every student vying for a spot at a top university. I, Emma Thompson, was no exception, my sights set on Stanford after a past life squandered on Jake Larson's empty promises. My reborn mission was to ace the SATs and rebuild my future one equation at a time. I'd been relentless, using my future memories to target SAT weak spots, tricky algebra, dense reading passages, and essay structures. I'd also doubled down on coding, spending weekends debugging Python scripts for a portfolio that screamed Stanford material. But Jake's shadow lingered. His betrayal at UC Riverside still stung, and his presence at school, laughing in the halls, charming classmates, tested my resolve. I'd brushed him off, but the social fallout was real. Whispers followed me, classmates betting I'd cave and run back to him. Today, I was stuck on a physics problem, the trajectory of a launched ball eluding me. I tapped my pencil, frustrated, when a quiet voice broke my focus. Try resolving the velocity into components. Ethan Clark, the school's top student, sat across from me, his hazel eyes scanning my notebook. His dark hair was slightly messy, and his hoodie was worn but clean. Ethan was a legend at Lincoln High, always first in class rankings, yet he shunned the spotlight, unlike Jake's loud charisma. Thanks, I said, sketching the vectors as he suggested. His explanation clicked the problem, unraveling like a puzzle. Ethan didn't hover, returning to his work, but his help lingered in my mind. I'd barely noticed him in my past life, too consumed by Jake. Now I remembered small moments, Ethan carrying me to the nurse's office when I'd fainted from low blood sugar, his quiet concern cutting through my haze. Why had he cared? I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the following problem. After class, I lingered in the hall, reviewing my notes. Jake appeared, his basketball bag slung over his shoulder, his friends trailing like an entourage. Emma, you forgot my Gatorade, he said, grinning as if we hadn't broken up. His friends chuckled, expecting me to play along. I didn't. I told you, Jake, I'm done. Get your own drink. My voice was sharp, drawing stares from passing students. Jake's grin faded, his eyes narrowing. You're making a scene. What's your deal? My deal is I'm not your errand girl anymore, I snapped, turning away. My heart raced, but I felt alive, free from the weight of his expectations. The hallway buzzed with whispers, but I didn't care. Lincoln High's social hierarchy thrived on conformity, but I was rewriting my role. That afternoon, I spread out my SAT prep books at the library, diving into a practice test. The library was a sanctuary filled with students hunched over laptops, the air heavy with ambition. I was halfway through a reading passage when Ethan sat nearby, his physics textbook open. You're intense, he said, a faint smile on his lips. Stanford, right? I nodded, surprised he'd noticed. Yeah. You too. He shrugged, hoping so. Computer science. His goal mirrored mine, sparking a flicker of connection. He added that you're good at this, nodding at my practice test. Most people don't work this hard. His compliment caught me off guard, a rare acknowledgement in a school where praise was scarce. I said, my voice softer. I messed up once, not again. Ethan tilted his head, curious, but didn't pry. Instead, he slid a page of notes toward me. These might help with the SAT math. They're from a workshop I took. I scanned the page for tips on time management and common traps. Thanks, I said, genuinely touched. He nodded and returned to his book, leaving me to wonder about his quiet kindness. That evening I overheard Tiffany Brooks in the hall, her voice sharp as she spoke to Jake. You're tutoring with me now. Her tone was possessive, her eyes darting toward me as I passed. Jake laughed, slinging an arm around her. Yeah, Tiff, you're the best. Their closeness confirmed my suspicions. Tiffany was falling for him just as I had. I felt a pang of pity, but I wouldn't warn her. She'd made her choice, and I had mine. Back home, I reviewed Ethan's notes, integrating them into my study plan. My future memories gave me an edge, but his insights sharpened it. Lincoln High's pressure was relentless, but with allies like Ethan, I felt less alone. I wasn't just fighting for Stanford. I was fighting for the Emma I'd always meant to be, the one who'd never let a boy like Jake steal her light again. The December air in Irvine, California, carried a sharp bite as I trudged across Lincoln High's campus, my breath visible in the early morning chill. It was the week of the district-wide mock SAT, a grueling test that mimicked the real exam and set the tone for college applications across Orange County. Lincoln High was a pressure cooker, its halls lined with posters touting UC Berkeley and UCLA, while guidance counselors preached about the Ivy League. As Emma Thompson reborn with memories of a future squandered on Jake Larson's betrayal, I was determined to ace this test and secure my path to Stanford. My past life's failure tanking my SATs to follow Jake to UC Riverside fueled my every step. I'd spent months preparing, leveraging my future knowledge of SAT patterns, tricky trigonometry, dense reading passages, and essay prompts demanding precision. For practice tests and Python coding projects for my Stanford application, my desk was a war zone of flashcards and a coffee mug, and they consumed my evenings. Lincoln High's culture was relentless. Students compared GPAs like stock prices, and parents bragged about early acceptances at Starbucks. I'd been a star once until I'd thrown it all away for Jake, the basketball star who'd cheated on me without a flinch. I was rewriting my story, but the school's memory of me as Jake's girlfriend made every step a battle. The mock SAT was held in the gym rows of desks under harsh fluorescent lights. I sat near the front, my pencils sharpened, my mind racing through last-minute formulas. Across the room, Tiffany Brooks, the class president, flipped her ponytail with a smug grin. She'd been gunning for me since I'd dumped Jake, her jealousy palpable. "You'll crash and burn, Emma," she'd whispered in the hall, her voice dripping with venom. "Stick to chasing boys, not scores." I ignored her, focusing on the test booklet as the proctor called time. The exam was brutal math problems, twisted with hidden variables, reading passages dense with archaic vocabulary. But my future memories gave me an edge. I knew to skip distractor answers and pace myself on essays. I finished with minutes to spare, my heart pounding with cautious confidence. As we filed out, Tiffany's voice cut through the chatter. "Bet Emma bombed it. She's all talk." Her friends giggled, but I kept walking, my focus unbroken. Results were posted a week later, and the school buzzed with anticipation. I stood outside the guidance office, scanning the ranking list pinned to the bulletin board. My name was missing from the top 20, sparking a knot of dread. Tiffany sauntered up, her smirk wide. No rank, Emma, guess you cheated and got caught. Her accusation spread like wildfire, students whispering as I stood frozen. The principal, Mr. Reynolds, appeared, his face stern. Emma, to my office. We need to discuss your test. My stomach dropped. In my past life, I'd never faced this. Cheating allegations were new, triggered by my changed behavior. Tiffany's influence as class president gave her words weight. I saw her hand in this. I didn't cheat. I said, my voice steady, but my hands shaking. Mr. Reynolds frowned, unconvinced. Your score's under review. Write a statement or you're suspended. Before I could respond, a calm voice cut through the tension. The top 10 tests were sent to the district for special review. Ethan Clark, the school's top student, stood nearby, his hazel eyes meeting mine. They're not on the list yet, sir. His words were quiet but firm, his hoodie slightly rumpled as he clutched a physics textbook. Ethan was a mystery, always first in rankings, yet he avoided the social games that defined Lincoln High. I remembered his help in class, his notes on SAT strategies, and now this. Mr. Reynolds hesitated, then nodded. Fine, we'll wait for the district. Tiffany's face soured, but she backed off, her friends muttering. I mouthed a thank you to Ethan, who shrugged, a faint smile flickering. Just hate seeing people jump to conclusions, he said, walking away. His intervention bought me time, but the whispers followed me to class, a reminder of how fragile my new path was. That afternoon, the district results arrived. I stood in the crowded hall as Mr. Reynolds pinned the final list. My name was there, Emma Thompson, third in the district. A cheer erupted from Mia Rodriguez, my deskmate, as students gaped. Tiffany, ranked fifth, stared in disbelief, her face paling. My near-perfect score silenced her rumors, proving my work wasn't a fluke. I'd used my future knowledge to nail every section, and my coding portfolio was ready to impress Stanford. But the victory was bittersweet. Tiffany's vendetta and Jake's lingering presence made the honors class toxic, a minefield of gossip and pressure. I decided then I'd transfer to a regular class. Lincoln High's honors track was a status symbol, but I didn't need it. My future was mine to shape, and I'd do it on my terms, free from Jake and Tiffany's games. January's pale sunlight filtered through the windows of Lincoln High's regular classroom, a stark contrast to the high-strung honors wing. I, Emma Thompson, transferred here after my district mock SAT triumph, escaping the toxic orbit of Jake Larson and Tiffany Brooks. Lincoln High's honors class was a pressure cooker. Its students were obsessed with Ivy League acceptances and AP scores, and their parents were tracking college rankings like sports stats. I'd ranked third in the district, proving my worth, but the whispers of cheating and Tiffany's vendetta had soured the environment. I needed a fresh start to stay focused on Stanford. The regular class was a revelation. Unlike the honors track where egos clashed and gossip festered, this room hummed with quiet determination. Often overlooked in Irvine's competitive suburbs, students here were hungry to prove themselves. My new deskmate, Lily Evans, was a studious girl with glasses and a quick smile, her desk covered in neatly organized notes. "You're the one who got third in the district, right?" she asked, her voice bright as we settled into English class. I nodded, a bit shy. "That's me. Teach me your secrets," she teased, flipping open her copy of 1984. I laughed, liking her instantly. The regular class wasn't less. It was driven, its students fighting to catch up in a system that favored early achievers. Lincoln High split students into tracks based on freshman entrance exams, and movement was rare. These labeled average kids worked harder than most honors students, their grit inspiring me. I dove into my studies, my future memories guiding me. The SAT was 2 months away, and I was relentless, tackling practice tests and refining my coding portfolio. My Python projects, a budgeting app, and a data visualization tool were nearly complete, tailored to impress Stanford's admissions board. I also joined the school's robotics club, where I met other students who shared my tech passion. Their enthusiasm starkly contrasted with the honors class's cutthroat vibe. One afternoon, as I helped Lily with a geometry problem, I noticed her solving steps were convoluted. "Skip this part," I said, pointing to her notebook. "Use the Pythagorean theorem directly." Her eyes lit up. "You're good at this. Third in the district makes sense." She paused, curious. "Why'd you leave honors? Everyone's talking about it." I hesitated, then shrugged. "Too much drama. I'm here to focus." Lily nodded, understanding. "Well, you're a legend now. People want your help with the mock SAT questions." I smiled, surprised by the warmth. In the honors class, I'd been Jake's ex, a target for Tiffany's jabs. Here I was, just Emma, the girl who could explain quadratics. I started tutoring classmates, breaking down problems with clarity honed by my future knowledge. The regular class became my sanctuary where ego didn't taint ambition. Ethan Clark appeared one day during lunch, and his hoodie and backpack were familiar sights. "Heard you switched classes," he said, sitting across from me in the cafeteria. The room buzzed with chatter about college essays and extracurriculars, but Ethan's presence grounded me. "Yeah," I said, biting into an apple. "Needed a change. Honors was intense." He nodded, his hazel eyes thoughtful. "You're still aiming for Stanford, though. It wasn't a question." Ethan was applying too, with a focus on computer science like mine. I remembered his defense during the cheating scandal, his calm voice cutting through the chaos. "Thanks for what you did," I said, meeting his gaze with the principal. "That could have gone not so well." He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Tiffany was out of line. "You didn't deserve that." His words were simple but carried weight, a reminder that he saw me for who I was becoming, not who I'd been. We talked about SAT strategies. His insights were sharp and practical. He said to watch for time traps in math, sketching a problem on a napkin. They love throwing in extra steps. I nodded, filing it away, my respect for him growing. Outside, I saw Jake and Tiffany through the cafeteria window, their arms linked as they laughed. Tiffany's grades were slipping her focus on Jake, eclipsing her ambitions. I'd been there once, sacrificing my future for a boy who'd never cared. Now I pitied her, but I wouldn't interfere. My path was clear: Stanford coding, a career I'd build myself. With its quiet drive and new allies like Lily and Ethan, the regular class was where I'd thrive. Jake and Tiffany could keep their drama, I was done with it, my eyes fixed on a future I'd earn. The auditorium of Lincoln High shimmered under dim golden lights, transformed into a dreamscape for the senior prom, a masquerade ball meant to ease the tension of college applications. It was April 2018, and Irvine, California buzzed with spring warmth, but inside the air was thick with anticipation and the scent of roses. I, Emma Thompson, stood against a wall, clutching a glass of punch, my face half hidden by a delicate silver mask gifted by my deskmate Lily Evans. Reborn with memories of a future I'd squandered on Jake Larson's betrayal, I was months away from the SATs, my sights set on Stanford. Tonight, though, I was here to breathe, to feel like a teenager again, even if just for a moment. Lincoln High's prom was a spectacle, a brief escape from the relentless grind of AP classes and college essays. The school's obsession with prestige, UC Berkeley, UCLA, the Ivies followed us even here, with students whispering about early decision results between dances. In my past life, I'd clung to Jake at this event, my heart racing as I stumbled through dance steps, terrified of losing him in the crowd. I'd been his shadow, my dreams of Stanford buried under his charm. Now I stood alone, my focus on my future, not a boy who'd never cared. The auditorium pulsed with classical music, couples twirling under vintage chandeliers. I watched, detached, my mask a shield against the past. I'd spent months rebuilding myself, using my future memories to master SAT math and reading. At the same time, my Python projects, a machine learning model, and a game app were nearly ready for my Stanford application. The regular class where I'd transferred to escape Jake and Tiffany Brooks had become my haven, its students driven by grit rather than ego. But the past wasn't done with me. A group approached, their masks failing to hide their arrogance. Tiffany Brooks, her gold mask glittering, led the pack, her arm linked with Jake's. They were dating now, and their public displays were a constant at school. Tiffany's eyes locked onto me, her lips curling. Emma slumming it alone, she taunted, her voice cutting through the music. "Thought you'd be chasing Jake again." Her friends laughed, their masks glinting like knives. I sipped my punch unfazed. "I'm good, Tiffany. Enjoy your night." My calm infuriated her, her green eyes narrowing. In my past life, I'd have wilted under her gaze, but now I saw her for what she was, a girl repeating my mistakes, trading her potential for Jake's fleeting attention. She'd been a top student, once bound for UC Davis, but her grades were slipping, her focus on Jake eclipsing her ambitions. Before I could walk away, Tiffany grabbed a soda from a nearby table and flung it at me. The sticky liquid splashed my hair, dripping down my dress. The crowd gasped, but I didn't flinch. I'd had enough. Grabbing a water bottle, I twisted the cap and dumped it over her, soaking her glittery gown. I said, "Enough, Tiffany," my voice low and sharp, gripping her wrist. "I'm done with your games." She yelped, her mask slipping, but the music swallowed her protest. Her friends hovered, too stunned to act. I let go, my heart steady, my anger cold and controlled. I wasn't the quiet Emma anymore who'd let Jake and Tiffany walk over her. A teacher, Ms. Carter, pushed through the crowd, her brow furrowed. "What's going on?" she demanded. Tiffany's friends scattered, and I released her wrists, stepping back. Tiffany sputtered, pointing at me. She attacked me. I shook my head, wiping soda from my hair. She started it, Ms. Carter. The teacher sighed, ushering Tiffany away, but not before I caught her muttering, "If you go after Jake again, you'll regret it." I almost laughed. Jake was her problem now, not mine. As the crowd dispersed, a slender hand offered me a pack of tissues. I saw a boy in a silver mask, its design eerily similar to mine. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft but familiar. I took the tissues, wiping my hair, and my pulse quickened. "Why not dance?" He added, his hazel eyes glinting through the mask. The words hit me like a memory. Why not dance? In my past life, someone had said that at this prom, guiding me through steps when I'd been too shy to try. I'd thought it was Jake, but his cruelty later made me doubt. "You," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Who are you?" He smiled, not answering, and nodded toward the dance floor. My mind raced. Could it be him, the boy who'd helped me before, whose kindness I'd overlooked? I hesitated, then shook my head, flustered. "I need to go," I mumbled, fleeing to the hallway, my heart pounding. Back in the quiet, I leaned against a wall, the soda drying in my hair. The mystery of that dance, a lingering question from my past life, felt closer to an answer, but I pushed it aside. Stanford was my focus, not prom night riddles. May bloomed over Irvine, California, with jacaranda trees painting the streets purple. But inside Lincoln High, the air was taut with the weight of the SATs. It was the day of the real exam, the culmination of months of grinding for me, Emma Thompson. Reborn with memories of a future lost to Jake Larson's betrayal. I'd poured everything into this moment, aiming for Stanford to reclaim the life I'd once thrown away. Lincoln High was a crucible of ambition. Its students were obsessed with college rankings, and their parents hovered at guidance office meetings to dissect UC and Ivy League odds. I'd escaped the toxic honors class, thriving in the regular class with its gritty, determined students, but today, the SAT would test my resolve. I'd prepared relentlessly, my future memories a secret weapon. I knew the test's patterns, math sections, heavy on algebra, and data analysis, reading passages that rewarded careful inference essays demanding a clear argument. My evenings had been spent in the library tackling practice tests and refining my Python portfolio, a predictive model for stock trends, and an interactive game app tailored for Stanford's computer science program. I'd also leaned on tips from Ethan Clark, the school's top student, whose quiet insights had sharpened my strategy. His defense during the mock SAT cheating scandal had saved me, and his presence had become a steady anchor. The sterile community college room's testing center buzzed with nervous energy. I sat at a desk, pencils lined up, my heart steady, but my hands clammy. Across the room, Tiffany Brooks fiddled with her calculator, her confidence unshaken despite her slipping grades. She'd been dating Jake, and their constant displays were a distraction from her once promising UC Davis path. I ignored her, focusing as the proctor distributed booklets. The test began, and I attacked each section, precisely my future knowledge guiding me through traps and time constraints. The essay, a prompt on ethical leadership, felt like a gift, and my response was sharp and structured. As we filed out, Tiffany's voice cut through the chatter. "Hope you didn't bomb it again, Emma," she said, smirking. Jake, lounging nearby, laughed. "She's trying too hard," he added, his arm around Tiffany. I walked past, unbothered. Their words couldn't touch me now. I'd felt the test's rhythm, my answers clicking into place. The regular class taught me resilience. Its students cheered on my mock SAT success. I was ready for this. Weeks later, the school cafeteria was a storm of excitement as SAT scores arrived. I checked mine online, my breath catching 99th percentile, a near-perfect score. Stanford was within reach. I printed my score report, tucking it into my bag as I headed to a class reunion at a local diner, a post-SAT celebration for the regular class. The restaurant was packed, neon lights reflecting off checkered floors, students swapping scores and college plans. Lily Evans, my deskmate, hugged me when I shared my score. "You're a rock star, Emma," she said, her eyes bright. Then Jake and Tiffany walked in, their presence a flashback to high school drama. They'd booked the honors class reunion next door, but spotted me. Tiffany, her hair pulled into a tight bun, sneered. "Still pretending you're Stanford material," she said, loud enough for heads to turn. Jake grinned, egging her on. "She's all talk, Tiff." I pulled my score report from my bag, holding it up. 99th percentile, Tiffany. Stanford's sending me an interview invite. What about you? Her face fell, her confidence crumbling. "We're going to Riverside," she muttered, clinging to Jake's arm. I shook my head, my voice soft but firm. "You could have aimed for UC Davis, Tiffany. Was it worth throwing that away for him? My words weren't just for her, they were for the old me, the girl who'd made the same mistake. Tiffany's eyes flickered with something like regret, but she turned away, pulling Jake with her. I'd learned later they'd barely scraped into Riverside, their focus on each other costing them both. I sat back, the diner's chatter resuming. My score was a triumph built on months of grinding and the regular class's support. Lily raised her soda. To Emma, Stanford bound, the table cheered, and I smiled, the weight of my past life lifting. I'd faced Jake and Tiffany not with anger, but with proof of my worth. Stanford was my future, and I'd earned it step by hard-won step. The summer sun bathed Irvine, California in a golden haze as I stood outside a local diner clutching my Stanford acceptance letter. In June 2018, weeks after my SAT triumph, the regular class reunion buzzed with laughter and nostalgia. I, Emma Thompson, had rewritten my fate, reborn with memories of a life lost to Jake Larson's betrayal. My 99th percentile SAT score had secured my spot at Stanford, a dream I'd abandoned in my past life to follow Jake to UC Riverside. Lincoln High's pressure cooker culture, where college acceptances were a status symbol, had tested me, but I'd emerged stronger, fueled by months of grinding practice tests and coding projects. Tonight I was here to celebrate not just my victory, but the new me. The diner's neon sign flickered its checkered floors, and vinyl booths packed with my regular class friends. Lily Evans, my deskmate, waved me over her glasses, glinting under the lights. "Emma, you made it," she called, her voice warm. The regular class had been my sanctuary after I'd fled the toxic honors track, its students' grit starkly contrasted to the ego-driven drama of Jake and Tiffany Brooks. I'd thrived there, tutoring peers and building a Python portfolio, a machine learning model, and a game app that had impressed Stanford's admissions board. A familiar figure approached as I slid into a booth sharing my acceptance news. Ethan Clark, Lincoln High's top student, stood there, his hoodie swapped for a crisp button-down, his hazel eyes bright. "Stanford, huh?" he said, holding up his acceptance letter, the Stanford logo gleaming. "Me too." My heart skipped. Ethan had been my quiet ally. His SAT tips and calm defense during the mock exam scandal were pivotal to my journey. I'd suspected he was the one who'd danced with me at the masquerade ball, a memory I'd once attributed to Jake. "Congrats," I said, smiling. "Computer science." He nodded, sitting beside me. The diner hummed with chatter, students swapping college plans, reminiscing about AP classes and prom. Lincoln High's obsession with prestige lingered even here, with talk of UC Berkeley and UCLA dominating the conversation. But Ethan's presence grounded me. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low. "At the prom, that was me. I gave Lily the mask to give you. I liked you back then, but I didn't want to distract you. Or me." His words hit like a revelation. In my past life, I'd clung to Jake at the prom, embarrassed by my clumsy steps. But someone had guided me through a dance, their kindness a fleeting warmth. I'd thought it was Jake, but his later betrayal made me doubt. Now Ethan's confession solved the mystery. "It was you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Why didn't you say anything?" He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You were focused. I knew Stanford was your goal and didn't want to mess that up. I almost lost my edge when you started catching up in class rankings." His honesty disarmed me, a contrast to Jake's manipulation. Ethan saw me as an equal, not a trophy, and his quiet support was a thread through my reborn journey. I laughed, a mix of relief and warmth. "You're sneaky, Clark." He grinned, pulling a pack of candy from his pocket. "For your low blood sugar," he said, echoing the time he'd carried me to the nurse's office in my past life. No fainting on me at Stanford. I took the candy, my chest tightening with something new, trust or affection. Unlike Jake, who'd demanded my devotion, Ethan believed in my potential, his ambition matching mine. We talked late into the night, the diner's jukebox playing soft rock as we swapped stories of late-night study sessions and college dreams. Ethan wanted to build AI systems. His passion for coding was as fierce as mine. Our shared goal, Stanford's computer science program, felt like a bridge, not a chain. As the reunion wound down, Lily nudged me, whispering, "He's into you, Emma." I blushed but didn't deny it. For the first time, I saw a future where love didn't mean sacrifice. Over the summer, Ethan and I grew closer, meeting at coffee shops to plan our Stanford applications and debug code. Our first date was at an Irvine arcade, laughing over pixelated games, his hand brushing mine. Unlike my past with Jake, where I'd lost myself, this felt balanced, built on mutual respect. By August, as we packed for Stanford, I knew this was different. Ethan wasn't just a partner, he was proof that choosing myself could lead to something real. 4 years later, the Irvine sky was a canvas of stars. As I stood outside a banquet hall, the air warm with June's promise. It was 2022, and I, Emma Thompson, was back for a Lincoln High reunion, my Stanford degree fresh, and a graduate school spot secured in computer science. Reborn with memories of a life lost to Jake Larson's betrayal. I'd rewritten my fate, trading a third-tier college for Stanford's hallowed halls. Lincoln High's pressure cooker culture, where college acceptances defined worth, had shaped me, but I'd emerged shining my path forged through relentless study and a refusal to repeat past mistakes. The banquet hall glowed, filled with former classmates swapping stories of college and careers. Stanford had been a whirlwind, late nights coding AI algorithms, internships at Silicon Valley startups, and a bond with Ethan Clark that had grown into love. He stood beside me, his hand warm in mine, a diamond ring sparkling on my finger. Our engagement was new, a quiet promise made under Palo Alto's oaks. Tonight we'd face the ghosts of high school, including Jake and Tiffany Brooks, whose drama had once threatened to derail me. Inside the room buzzed with nostalgia. Now at UC San Diego, Lily Evans hugged me, her glasses still glinting with mischief. "Emma, you and Ethan," I called it, she teased. The regular class, my haven, after escaping the toxic honors track, was well represented, their grit paying off in diverse paths: nursing, engineering, teaching. Lincoln High's obsession with prestige lingered, with some boasting about grad schools or corporate jobs, but I felt at ease, my Stanford degree, a badge I'd earned. Then Jake and Tiffany entered, a jolt from the past. Jake, his blonde hair thinning, wore a strained smile, while Tiffany, visibly pregnant, glowed despite a weary edge. They'd married after attending UC Riverside, their college years marked by breakups and reconciliations. I'd heard rumors Jake's family business was struggling, and Tiffany had abandoned her UC Davis dreams to follow him, her grades a casualty of their romance. They approached the room, quieting eyes darting between us. "Emma," Jake said, his voice heavy, "you won." I messed up everything. His regret was palpable, a shadow of the cocky boy who'd betrayed me. Tiffany stood silent, her eyes distant. I kept my tone light but firm. "You should regret it, Jake. I regret ever thinking you were worth my future." My words were for the old me, the girl who'd tanked her SATs for him. Tiffany stirred, her voice soft. She admitted I gave up UC Davis for him, glancing at Jake. "I thought it was love. Now I'm stuck waitressing while he chases get-rich-quick schemes." Her honesty surprised me, a mirror to my past life's mistakes. I felt pity she'd fallen into the same trap I'd escaped. "You're not stuck forever," I said gently. "You can still choose yourself." She nodded, a flicker of resolve in her eyes, but Jake pulled her away, his face dark. I turned to Ethan, who'd watched quietly, his hand steady in mine. We stepped outside, the stars bright above Irvine's suburban sprawl. "Regrets?" he asked, his hazel eyes soft. I thought of my journey, reborn after a car accident, guided by a mysterious voice to rewrite my fate. I'd chosen Stanford over Jake answers, over approval, and found Ethan, who believed in who I could be, not just who I was. "None," I said, smiling. "I chose myself first, and it led me to you." He squeezed my hand, his calm strength contrasting with Jake's chaos. The reunion's noise faded behind us, the past a distant echo. I'd walked through fire, not to burn, but to shine. My future grad school, a tech career, a life with Ethan was wide open, a story I'd written on my terms.